The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, chapter 10, verses 35 to 45. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." Jesus replied, "What do you wish me to do for you?" They answered him, "Grant that in your glory we may sit one at your right and the other at your left." Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" They said to him, "We can." Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right or at my left is not mine to give, but is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, they became indignant at James and John. Jesus summoned them and said to them, "You know that those who are recognized as rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you will be a servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you will be the slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." A few things that strike me as I read this Holy Gospel is, first of all, James and John, they are seeking a good thing, but in a certain, namely, to sit at the right hand of Jesus and the left hand for all eternity in his glory. That is a good thing, but they are thinking simply of themselves. In other words, they are selfish. They are not thinking of the others. They're not thinking of other people. I think one of our biggest enemies in life is our own selves. We are so self-centered that we don't see the needs of others and don't reach out to them as we should, and as Jesus did. So the first thing we might learn from this gospel is not to be selfish and to think only of my own self, but to think of others as well. Then the second thing, as we move on in the gospel, we see that the 10, in other words, the other apostles, they were quite indignant at what James and John were petitioning. And they realized that they were thinking only of themselves. So we see also the weakness in the 10. Sometimes people can sympathize with the sufferings of others, but they cannot sympathize or rejoice at the success of others. I know of a sick man who, when he was sick, the people in the group to which he was attached were very sympathetic toward him. And then he had a healing, and it seemed that nobody really rejoiced at the healing. Perhaps that was the way the 10 apostles looked at James and John. They did not want them to get ahead of themselves. In a certain sense, they themselves were selfish. Well, as we move on in the gospel, we see that Jesus summoned them, and he tells them something very important, which is for them and also for us. Namely, that we must think of others. Jesus himself said, "I have come not to be served, but to serve, and to give my life as a ransom for others." He did that on the cross when he offered his life, his precious body and blood for our salvation. So in this gospel we can observe many different things, but among them, namely these 4. To be careful of selfishness and self-centeredness, that we must, in a daily battle, reach out to others and not think of my own self. That we can rejoice with the success of other people. And that Jesus, who is our model, that we serve others. Little kindnesses, just a smile, that we reach out to others, especially those in need, and help them in some little way, encourage them, pray for them, and work for their happiness and for their salvation. God bless you and have a nice day. And until the next time, goodbye.